After the sudden and tragic death of her mother, 16-year-old Leia finds herself trapped in a home filled with chilling secrets, suffocating silence, and a stepmother who seems far too perfect to be real. But when fragments of a dark and horrifying truth began to surface, Leia was shocked by what she saw, and a quiet quest for answers turned into a desperate fight for her own survival. Please like and subscribe for more daily ReBLOX stories. And let's get started. When I was 16, just 4 short months after we had lost my mom, my dad started seeing a woman named Karina. The whiplash was brutal. One day, my mom and I were laughing, jumping on the trampoline in our backyard like carefree kids, and the next, a freak accident, a snapped spine, and a sterile, white-walled hospital room where the nurses told us, with a practiced, detached sympathy, that she wouldn't survive. I had screamed for my dad then, a raw, primal sound of a world breaking apart, but he was away on another one of his endless business trips. He was always traveling back then, a ghost in our lives even before he was a widower. Just 2 weeks after the funeral, he brought Karina home. I knew something was off the moment he told me she was coming for dinner. He had ironed his shirt, a task he hadn't performed himself in years, and had meticulously cleaned the kitchen. Karina arrived in a pristine white pantsuit that looked like it cost more than our entire monthly mortgage payment. Her daughter, Mira, trailed in behind her, looking around our cozy, lived-in home with the detached curiosity of a tourist on a museum tour. Karina smiled, a wide, bright, and utterly unnerving smile that didn't reach her cold, calculating eyes for a single second. She immediately started touching things, her perfectly manicured fingers grazing over my mother's hand, painted ceramic bowl on the hallway table, then drifting across the framed family photos on the mantel. It wasn't a gentle touch, it was an assessment, like she was checking inventory, deciding what would stay and what would be discarded. "This is Karina from my office?" Dad said, his gaze fixed on a point just over my shoulder, refusing to meet my eyes. "She's been helping me through all of this?" "All of this?" As if my mother's life and death were just some inconvenient administrative task to be managed. "And this is her daughter, Mira," he added, an afterthought. "She's your age." Mira glanced at me for a fleeting second before her eyes darted up the stairs, as if she were already choosing which room she wanted to claim as her own. At first, the changes were small, insidious acts of erasure. Karina took down the beautiful, hand-sewn curtains my mom had spent a month making, replacing them with sterile, minimalist blinds. "Something about how natural sunlight helps her mood," she'd said. Then, she systematically removed all the family photos from the mantel, claiming that living in the past isn't healthy for anyone's healing process. My mother's vibrant, chaotic, and beautiful garden, her sanctuary, was torn up and replaced with a bleak space complete with a ridiculously oversized Buddha statue that she claimed was a genuine antique. Then came the room situation. Karina, with a practiced, concerned expression, explained that Mira needed my room, the one with the large bay window, because of her delicate anxiety. My dad didn't even blink. He just turned to me and said, "You're tougher than she is, Leia. You'll be fine in the smaller guest room." He was too busy, too caught up in booking romantic weekend getaways and couples massages with Karina, to notice that I was still sleeping in my mom's old university hoodie, the one that still, if I buried my face in it, smelled a little bit like her vanilla and sandalwood perfume. I was the one who had to help Mira carry her expensive, designer luggage into what used to be my room. I was the one who had to force a smile when she complained that my closet was too small for her extensive wardrobe. I was the one who had to watch her set up her things on the antique desk my mother had spent 3 long weekends painstakingly sanding and staining for me. All because my dad kept giving me that look, that silent, pleading and deeply cowardly look that said, "Don't make this any harder than it has to be." So at dinner, when Karina would launch into her long, performative monologues about new beginnings and family bonding, I just nodded and smiled, playing the part of the well-adjusted, welcoming daughter, all while I was silently falling apart on the inside. What hurt the most, more than any of the physical changes to our home, was how Karina tried to replace my mother without ever once attempting to actually care about me. She would hire a personal shopper to take me for new clothes, a transaction disguised as a bonding experience. When the first anniversary of my mom's death arrived and I broke down in tears, she didn't offer a hug or a kind word. She booked me a solo session at a day spa and then seemed genuinely annoyed when the massage didn't magically fix my grief. Everything finally, irrevocably cracked when I asked my dad if I could sign up for an intensive SAT prep class. My mom had started a college fund for me the day I was born. A small but consistent contribution that had grown over 16 years. Education, she always used to say, is the one thing in this life that no one can ever take away from you. Before my dad could even respond, Karina jumped in, her voice as smooth as silk. "Oh, that's the same weekend as Mira's sweet 16 party. We're using the family funds for that. The country club has a $30,000 minimum spend. You know, my college fund isn't family money," I said, my voice quiet but firm. My dad's face tightened. "Your mother would want us to stay united as a family," he said, his voice sharp. "Don't be selfish." Well, Mom cared more about education than anything, I shot back, my own voice rising. "She's not here anymore," he snapped, his words a brutal, careless slap. "Karina knows what's best for our family now." That's when the full, horrifying truth began to unravel. I found out through a series of snooping and hushed conversations. $43,000 that my mother had painstakingly saved through years of clipping coupons, working side jobs, and taking on overtime shifts. was gone. Every single cent of all of it had been spent on Mira's brand new BMW, her exorbitant sorority dues for a college she hadn't even applied to yet, and Karina's disgustingly luxurious bathroom remodel, complete with a gold-plated shower head. Mira has social anxiety, Karina had explained to my dad, as if that somehow made the theft acceptable. These things will help her adjust and build her confidence. That was it for me, I snapped. I remembered my mom's old jewelry box, still tucked away in the back of the hallway closet. Her grandmother's antique pearl earrings alone were worth more than enough to cover the society prep course. I grabbed the box and headed straight to a local pawn shop, but my desperate plan crashed and burned almost immediately. The pawn shop owner, a kind man who had known my dad for years, recognized the family name. Since I was a minor, he had to call my dad to confirm the sale. I left empty-handed and filled with a sense of dread. When I got home, Karina was waiting for me, her face a mask of cold, righteous fury. "After everything we have done for you," she seethed, "this is how you repay us, by trying to steal from us." I just stared at her, the hypocrisy of her words taking my breath away. The night of Mira's sweet 16 was a surreal torture. I wore the ridiculously expensive dress Karina had picked out for me and played the part of the happy, supportive stepsister. Mira floated around the opulent country club ballroom like a spoiled queen, already 5 drinks deep by the time they brought out the 7-layer, custom-designed cake. The party was almost over when I found her in the ladies' room sobbing, her mascara running in black rivers down her cheeks. "You hate me," she slurred, her words thick with alcohol. "I don't hate you, Mira. You should," she mumbled, gripping the marble sink as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. "You want to know a secret? The night before your mom died, we were at your house. Your dad said he was at a conference. Remember?" My stomach turned to ice. "My mom told me to wait in the car, but I didn't. I followed them to the backyard. They were doing something to your trampoline." She blinked slowly, her eyes unfocused and swimming with a mixture of guilt and alcohol. "Your mom, Karina," she said. "This will work perfect." He said something about needing to be seen at the hotel the next morning to make sure he had an alibi. "What are you talking about, Mira?" "I'm drunk," she slurred. "Just forget it. Forget I said anything." But I couldn't. She had already said too much. As she stumbled, I grabbed her wrist. "What did you mean?" "They were doing something the trampoline." Real genuine fear broke through her drunken haze. Just then Karina's voice, as smooth and sharp as ever, floated in from the hallway. "Mira, sweetie, where's the birthday girl?" Before either of us could move, the bathroom door creaked open. Karina stood there, her smile finally terrifyingly reaching her eyes. It was too wide, too sharp. Me, still holding Mira's wrist, our faces pale with shock, and her smile widened. "Everything okay in here, girls?" she asked, but her tone made my skin crawl. She knew. She knew that Mira had just detonated a bomb in the middle of my life. The drive home in her sleek, silent Mercedes felt like being locked in a cage. Mira had passed out in the back seat, while Karina kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror, her eyes like chips of ice. "Some people just can't handle their drinks," she said, her voice too calm, too casual. "They say the strangest things when they're drunk, don't they?" I didn't answer. I went straight to my dad's study. He was sitting behind his desk, his tie loose, still buzzed from the party. His laptop was open to his calendar. "Dad," I began, my voice trembling, "I need to ask you something about Mom's accident. Were you really at that conference the weekend she died?" He waved a dismissive hand. "Why are you even asking that?" I stepped closer to his desk, and that's when I saw it. His calendar for that entire week was completely blank. No conference, no meetings, nothing. Before he could react, I snapped a photo of the screen with my phone. He lunged across the desk, slamming the laptop shut with a violent crack. Just then, the door opened and Karina appeared. As if she'd been listening the whole time, she gently guided my dazed father out of the room. When the door clicked shut, she turned to me, her smile gone. "Mira says the strangest things when she's drunk," she repeated, her voice a low, menacing whisper. "I hope you're not taking a hammered teenager's rambling too seriously." When I got to my room, the lock had been removed from the door. A fresh scratch from a screwdriver marred the frame. My phone buzzed, an unknown number. "Stop digging, or you'll be next." The next morning, as soon as they left for a hangover brunch, I climbed up to the attic. I found my mom's old phone in a box of electronics. I plugged it in and waited. When the screen lit up, I went straight to her messages. The last one she ever sent to her best friend, "Claire, need to talk about R and the new insurance policy. Something's not right, R." "Rick," my dad. Suddenly a voice from the doorway. I spun around. Karina was standing there, her shadow long and sharp across the floor. "Grief does strange things to people," she said calmly, picking up one of my mom's old sweaters. "It makes them see patterns that aren't there." She had already started her campaign to discredit me. She had called Claire and told her I was having a breakdown. She had hacked my Instagram account, posting long, rambling and unhinged captions in the middle of the night. She called my school counselor, mentioning my violent tendencies. My dad, completely under her spell, announced that I was starting therapy the next week with a friend of Karina's who specializes in troubled teens. I called my grandma's nursing home, desperate for an ally, and learned that Karina had been intercepting my calls and telling my grandmother that I didn't want to see her anymore. "Oh, and dear?" my grandma said, her voice confused. "Do you remember where I put the key to your mother's safety deposit box?" Your mother said you should have what's inside when you turn 18. The next day when I rode my bike to the nursing home, Karina's white Mercedes was already parked out front. My grandma was gone. The nurse at the front desk told me that Karina had taken her for a spa day, but on my grandma's nightstand were her reading glasses, the ones she needed to read or sign anything. I started talking to our neighbors. 3 of them had seen something odd the night before my mom's accident. One saw a figure on the trampoline, checking the springs. Another saw my dad's car in the driveway when he was supposed to be out of town. A third mentioned how strangely familiar Karina was with our backyard for someone who had just moved in. It all clicked. Karina wasn't she was systematically isolating me, cutting me off from every potential ally, painting me as unstable to anyone who might listen. Then, a note in my backpack from Mira. Mom checks my phone, meet me at the mall, Starbucks 3 p.m. But when I got there, it was Karina standing with a mall security guard, her face a perfect mask of maternal concern. "There she is, officer," she said. She threatened Mira and told her to meet her here. The guard escorted me out of the mall as shoppers stared and whispered. That night my dad confronted me. "Mira told us everything," he said, his voice thick with a disappointment that hurt more than any slap. "How you grabbed her at the party, how you're trying to make her lie about that weekend. I know you miss your mom, Laya, but blaming Karina and Mira isn't going to bring her back." But the truth had a strange way of finding its way to the surface. My mom's old friend from the hardware store told me that my dad had bought a specific set of tools, spring adjusters, the week before my mom's death. My mom's co-worker told me that she had been in the process of changing the beneficiary on her life insurance policy. A policy that I discovered through an intercepted piece of mail was for $2 million. And the beneficiary was Karina. The final piece of the puzzle came from an unexpected source: the security cameras of our neighbor, Mr. Peterson. He had saved the footage from the night before my mom's accident. It was grainy, but it was undeniable. It showed 2 figures, a man and a woman, in our backyard, working on the trampoline in the dead of night. The day the insurance investigator was scheduled to arrive, I was ready. I had my evidence, mindlessly organized collection of screenshots, receipts, witness statements, and the crucial video footage. The living room felt like a battlefield. My dad, my uncle Mike, Karina, and Mira, who had since moved out to live with her aunt, were all there. I presented my case, my voice clear and steady. Karina kept trying to interrupt, to discredit me, but the investigator was focused on the evidence. Her fatal mistake came when I mentioned my mother's concerns about the insurance policy. She was being paranoid. Karina blurted out, always going on about the policy, asking questions, accusing people. The room fell silent. She had just admitted to knowing exactly what my mom had been worried about, something she couldn't have known unless my mom had confronted her. The investigator's pen froze. He looked up, his eyes sharp. My dad's face went pale. And then Mira spoke. Her voice was shaky but clear. She told them what she had seen that night in the backyard. The investigator immediately moved to inspect the trampoline. He took detailed photographs, and then he showed my dad the video footage from Mr. Peterson. My dad didn't say a word. He just stood up, walked out of the house, got in his car, and drove away. He came back 3 days later, packed his bags, and left for good, following Karina into a new life built on lies and, I suspect, murder. There were no criminal charges. The evidence was strong, but not strong enough for a conviction. But Karina didn't get the money. The $2 million policy was voided due to evidence of fraud. What was left of my mom's actual savings was placed in a trust for my education. Inside my mom's safety deposit box, I found a letter she had written to me, dated 2 weeks before her death. There were no warnings, no accusations, just love. She told me to chase my dreams, to trust my instincts, and to surround myself with people who truly cared. 6 months later, I got an email from my dad, no apology, just a forwarding address for the divorce paperwork. I never saw him again. But my life, the one my mother had dreamed for me, was just beginning. I had my community, my chosen family, and my future. And for the first time since that terrible day on the trampoline, I felt safe. I felt free.